Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8-Second Gaming, and for this video we're going to be talking 2 tips for every map in the ranked rotation right now. People sometimes have a little bit of a hard time understanding what they need to do on the maps, so don't worry, I got you covered. But if you guys are really looking to improve your Apex skills, whether it be positioning, decision making, aim, or just anything else, then you need to check out the GameLeap website right now. Over there we have hundreds of the best, most highly informative guides made from top level players to make you an absolute beast in Apex. No matter what you struggle with, we have a guide on the site for you with more on the way every single week. We've already helped a bunch of people hit new peak ranks and you could be next, so click the link in the description, pick yourself up a membership and start to climb today. But okay, let's hop straight into these tips now, and to start off we're going to be talking about Broken Moon because people do have a hard time climbing on Broken Moon. I personally don't mind it. I know a lot of people don't like it, but we're going to talk about it. So tip number 1 is actually something that I don't recommend to do on other maps, but Broken Moon it works well, and that's actually to drop with one other team when you first land. Now the reason that I don't recommend you doing this on other maps is because it's an extremely risky tactic. Typically in ranked you don't really want to roll the dice on anything, you don't want to let RNG decide your game, but on Broken Moon it can be worth it. Early KP is a very important thing on this map specifically because the mid game on Broken Moon you do not want to fight ever. There are so many third parties and the zip rails allow people to get on top of you extremely quickly. So if you can avoid it, you just don't want to fight in the mid game at all. You don't want to bring people towards you, you don't want to get 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th partied. And when you land with that one other team, you're able to get that 3 KP just right off the bat, and then you're not going to be stressing as much when you come into the mid game to try to force yourself to fight to try and get some KP, and you'll be a lot more fluid throughout the match and be able to adapt a lot easier and not try to just kind of stick yourself into a situation because you need kills. Trust me guys, this has helped me climb a lot even if I'm solo queuing. Adapt it into your playstyle and you will see the same results. But now the next tip is something that a lot of people probably know but not a lot of people really understand, and that is to not go to Promenade. Promenade is very enticing. It's right in the center of the map. A lot of people go there. Everybody's like, you know what, maybe I'll kind of stop by, maybe I'll take a look at it, maybe I'll just do some window shopping. But no, you have to stop going to Promenade. It is never worth it. Maybe 1 game out of 10 you're able to actually win the Promenade fight, but a bunch of times whenever you're fighting in Promenade, teams are just going to keep showing up. And there are so many spots in Promenade that you can get shot from when teams are rolling up that it's very hard to actually survive those fights with more and more teams on the way. Promenade is just a death trap. Every single map kind of has their triangle of death or circle of death where you just want to avoid it. On Olympus, it's by Hammond Labs, on Stormpoint, it's by Cascades, and Command Center there, on World's Edge, it's Fragment, and on this map, it is Promenade. Do not go there. If the ring is forcing you there and you absolutely have to, then yes, obviously, go through Promenade, but start to plan your rotations just a little bit better. Look at the map sooner, look at where you're going to need to go, use the zip rails if you have to, but to just nail the point home one more time, don't go to Promenade. But okay, that is Broken Moon done, so let's move into Olympus. Now, I love Olympus for pubs. It's a great pubs map. For ranked, it's not that good, but it is a nice change up from what we've had before, and it is nice to have it back in the rotation, so, you know, we'll talk about it. But Olympus actually has so many open sight lines. You can see for forever on that map. So the first tip is use a marksman or sniper rifle if it works into your team's playstyle. Marksman rifles, especially on Olympus, are very strong. The G7 Scout is a beast on this map. You can farm so much damage, you can farm a lot of free KP, and when you're farming that damage, you're getting your Evo shields up for not only you, but you can swap it off onto your team as well and get their Evo armors up. I've had games where I've literally sat on top of one vantage point and farmed 3 red Evos for my team with just a marksman rifle because teams kept walking by and giving me free damage. There are other maps that do have strong sniper lanes, but Olympus just feels so good for these marksman rifles because they just work so well with the sightlines that Olympus does have. The sniper rifles are still good on Olympus, but they're more comfortable in the long ranges. Once they start to get to medium to close ranges, they do fall off, but marksman rifles like the G7 can actually work in those medium to close as well because the hipfire is still pretty good. If you're a support player, you should probably probably running a scout every single game and just getting your team so much utility out of it. It's the best advice I can give you, but let's talk about tip number 2, and that is that endgame spots are a lot harder to hold in Olympus, so don't be afraid to be more dynamic. Now, right now in the meta, holding zone is not as big of a strategy. A lot of people like to run edge, they like to be aggressive, but there are still some people out there that do enjoy playing zone. And for you guys, Olympus is a lot harder of a map to climb on because the endgame spots that Olympus has aren't as strong as other maps. They're a lot easier to push and siege than they are on other places like maybe World's Edge. So something that these teams are going to have to work on is being okay with giving your spot up. I see way too many people get way too stubborn because they're trying to hold zone. People are sieging them time after time after time. There's third, fourth, fifth parties coming in, and they just continue to try to hold the same spot even after all their doors are blown off and teams are just continuously running at them. If that's the case for you, don't be afraid to leave that building, go play just a slightly worse spot, and then come back in the end game. If your spot is less enticing and harder to push, then teams aren't going to want to do it as much. And yes, it might be a little bit of a worse spot for endgame, but you can always play around that and learn how to adapt in your own situations. This will just keep you alive a lot longer, and maybe if you have a Valkyrie, you can Valk Alto and land just some random spot in the end game, who knows? But that is Olympus done, so now let's move into the last map, and that is everyone's favorite, Stormpoint. Now, yes, that was a joke. I know Stormpoint isn't everyone's favorite, but honestly, it should be, because it was designed with competitive and ranked in mind, and it does its job perfectly. So with that being said, let's talk about the first tip, and that is that early KP can be nice, so you should land beside 2 teams. This is probably one of the best strategies to have on Stormpoint because so many people don't expect it. When 2 teams are landing, all they're doing is tunnel visioning on each other. They're saying, hey, there's only one other team here, let's fight these guys. And sometimes they take a little bit longer than they should to actually engage that team. They loot up a little bit, they run around, they just kind of do stuff, and that gives you and your team time to land beside them, loot up yourselves, get exactly what you need, wait for them to fully commit on each other, and then go to clean up the fight. And this is a very good strategy for early game because you're not rolling the dice on actually trying to get some stuff with the one other team that you're landing with. You're letting them roll the dice with each other while you get a very strong loadout by looting up an entire POI by yourself. Then once they start to fight, you can roll on in, clean up the kills, maybe even potentially get 6 KP because they were all just low and nobody had died yet. And now you are set for the rest of the game and you can do whatever you want. You could fight or you could just play endgame because you got so much KP. Now I will warn you guys that this can be risky. Like I said, you're not rolling the dice, but you are hoping that they are engaging on each other hard enough to be low or just be able to be cleaned up by you. If you miss time when you engage, then you can become the center of attention and now you're fighting 2 teams and that can be very risky for you. So another piece of advice for this is if you're going to try to implement it into ranked, just try it in pubs first and get the timing down before you bring it into ranked. But now let's move into our second tip for this map, and that is Stormpoint is huge. Everyone knows that. The map is big, but because of this, you can take more isolated fights. Now that's a very rare term in Apex because isolated is not a thing on most maps. If you start fighting, there's going to be a team nearby and they're going to be just jumping on you. But because Stormpoint has so many named POIs and so many spots that teams can go, and the map is just huge, you can play on edge and take isolated fights with no teams anywhere near you. It is a lot easier if you have a recon legend because then you can scan the beacons, see exactly where teams are, and know if a fight's isolated. But once you start to understand the map a little bit more and understand where teams are going to be rotating, you can start to pick off more isolated fights because you just kind of understand where teams would be. Isolated fights are huge if you really want to climb because this is just a straight up 3v3. If your team's better, you're going to win. If the other team's better, they're going to win. You're not really worried about any other outside factors. You're just doing exactly what you need to do to win the fight. But let me know your favorite tip to climb on any of the maps in the comments down below. And if you guys want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm Gaming, and I'll see you guys in the next one.